Hey folks, my name is Pravus and welcome back to Synergy, a very stylized city builder where you have to adapt and survive in a strange and hostile world. We've taken a look at this game a couple of times on the channel before, and though it is still in early access, as of today it is receiving a major update, which fundamentally changes the progression of the game, and in my opinion, it's a very, very solid change. We're going to show this all off in today's video, though before I begin, I do want to say a big thank you to Goblins Publishing for sponsoring today's video and getting me early access. It is very much appreciated as always. If you like what you see as you watch this video, there will be a link in the description down below and you can click on that. Also, at the time this video goes live, the game will be 30% off. Now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and start up a new game. And here we go. Now, if you have not seen this game before, one of the most important things to understand is that this is a game about adaptation. You need to study your surroundings, especially the local plant life, because everything here is going to be key to your survival. So one of the most important things you can do at the beginning of the game is place down a quick field laboratory, and I'll place one right over here. This is going to allow us to have people study some of the local plant life and find out how we can use it for our survival. We also are going to need to set up some water generation. That means I need to get myself a quick pontoon in this general area, and we need to process this into something actually drinkable because all of the water in this world is currently toxic. So we have to refine it into something pure. I'll also store some right along over here so we can have some toxic water buildup that we can keep refining, and then I'll place some other clean water storage closer to my city center so I can place down some local housing. Now, another thing we want to build up very early on is a new structure called the Founders Square, because districts have been completely reworked in this update. Not a lot for me to do with this quite yet. I'm just going to go ahead and place this so you can see it, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, and now with the field laboratory, let's go ahead and assign a couple of people to work over here, and we're going to start studying some nearby plants. Let's go ahead and assign a task. For now, we only have a surface deep level analysis, which doesn't go very far, but at least we can get some basic fundamentals for the different plants available here. So let's study what we think are going to be some fruit bushes over here, maybe some of these giant mushrooms for some food, and I also really want to study some of these over here, these cinder plants, so I will be able to get some bark. Everything else, though, we're going to gradually just start working our way through the list. I do like that they added these little question marks over the plants you haven't studied before. It makes it very easy to identify what still needs to be studied. Pretty cool. Now, science has been completely reworked in this update. Simply by having one of these buildings and operating it, we are passively going to be generating some science points. If I take a look at the research tree over here, we can see that a lot of this is going to be broken up into two different currencies: science points and heritage points, so your technology and your cultural legacy. You're going to need some combination of both of these points in order to unlock all future technologies. Though at the very beginning of the game, all you really need are just the basic science points. So we will see over time that this is going to start building up. For now, though, let's go ahead and take a look at our Founders Square. Now, there's not much for us to do with this right now, though you can see its operating range here. If we were to click on Improve, we can see that we would be able to evolve this into one of several different districts. Now, this looks very similar to what we had before in the previous iterations of the game. You have your green park squares, observatories, monuments, and so on. One thing that is different, though, is the different districts now have milestones that can be met as you gain population and you develop the district. And once you hit certain milestones, you get a special benefit. So for example, building out the display square would mean that we can have more people working in different buildings, we get more social satisfaction, knowledge satisfaction, and so on. Go to the observatory and we can have more research centers and stash up more science points, so on and so forth. A pretty cool change, but we're going to come back to that later because it's a little bit early to be worrying about districts right now. Let's go ahead and assign a couple of people to work in this pontoon just so we can start gathering up that toxic water. And if we take a look at our analyses, we can see that, yeah, with these diluvian bushes, we could trim them or rip them out to get some branches, or we could gradually pick them and get some sour pods for a little bit of early food, which isn't a bad idea. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and place down a picker's cabin up over here as well, so that people will be able to work some simple gathering jobs. Now, I am going to go for a quick mission to chop down some of the cinder sprout over here. This is going to get me some early bark. Normally, I'd prefer to harvest this stuff, but we need the bark in order to actually get some homes. And speaking of homes, that actually has been changed. I don't know if it was in this update or maybe a previous one, but instead of getting the normal full-fledged houses we had before, we have to start with some rustic tents, which aren't exactly great, but it's what we have to work with. Let's go ahead and place down about 7 of these, and this is going to take up a lot of my building materials. I'll also assign a couple people to this picker's cabin. Let's go ahead and assign a quick picking task over here around these sour pods. Now notice one thing that also got changed. Again, I don't think it was in this update, maybe a previous one, but when you assign these kinds of gathering tasks, now it actually is like a big beacon area, and you have to gather everything in its radius. Previously, you just assigned like random plants anywhere in the world, and your people just had to go get them. Now it's actually a bit more concentrated, which is kind of nice and easy to control. Let's go ahead and start building up a cellar in this area as well. This is where we're going to be able to start distributing some of our food stuff, so you need to keep this around your housing. Oh my gosh, what are these weird floating mollusks? I don't recognize these. Can I eat them? Probably not. I do need to have a consistent source of some of the cinder sprout. Might be worth placing another one of these gathering huts in this general area. It's a little bit further away than I would like, but you can see that the gathering huts do not have unlimited range from these dotted lines, so I need to place this a little bit closer to the cinder sprouts if I want a consistent source of bark. Okay, and now that we have a cellar with some food in it, everyone's needs are currently being met. That is great. So we don't have very good social well-being for our characters right now. Well-being is only at a level of 5 out of 10. Knowledge is also at a level of 5 out of 10. You can also see that up over in this direction. This represents some of the different maximum points we can have in our current districts. Right now, by only having 5 out of 10 for our knowledge, we are getting 25% of our possible science point production. That is not exactly fast, and we have other ways of building that up. Let's go to the research tree, and probably one of the first things that I want to get is going to be the future of the community, which is a structure we can use to generate more science points. So let's pick that up. Research didn't used to be an instantaneous thing like that, but it is now. Where do we want to place this? Probably right over here, honestly. Seems good. We might need to extract some of these ruins over here to get some technological artifacts so that we can build structures like that. More advanced stuff does tend to need that, but there's not a lot of those out in the open world, so we're going to have to use those very sparingly, at least for now. There we go. Kind of a weird-looking structure, isn't it? But if we assign some people here, we can see, yep, extra points per day. Now, I definitely need some inventory space over here as well. Probably a good idea to go ahead and build myself a quick warehouse. We're pretty low on resources at the moment. Bark, of course, is still very much going to be a bottleneck for me, as I predicted it would be. That's fine, though. So far, economy looks like it's on track for what it should be, and as long as we're going to keep generating science, we'll be good to go. In fact, the next thing we'll go ahead and probably pick up is... well, we could get the exploration missions. This will be a way of boosting up our knowledge in the city, but instead I'm going to go ahead and grab the kitchen. The kitchen will be useful to start getting ourselves some simple meals and boost up our nutritional value in the city. And for good nutrition, honestly, we might as well just go ahead and start harvesting these giant fungus over here. The giant fungus are among us, but they are worth quite a lot of delicious food. And actually, already we're up to 6 more science points. Perfect. Let's just go ahead and unlock that explorer's hut. We might as well have it on hand. Now, my biggest issue is I think we just don't have anywhere near enough population. Which, you know, having some extra housing and stuff, housing space, will eventually lead to the birth of some more children. But we have to wait for a full cycle before that's going to happen. So, yeah, it might be a while. Also, it's not like children are useful right out of the gate, right? Can you imagine? Anyway, let's get somebody working here in the kitchen, and I do want to make probably the mushroom soup, since I don't have any rough oatmeal available at the moment. We need vegetables for that, which we could get. I think we've studied these little plants over here. The wigged lotus. Wigged lotus. I don't know why I said wigged. That's funny. Anyway, yeah, depending on whether we want to rip it out or just pick it, we could get ourselves some vegetables, or maybe even some seeds, which could be useful. Actually, the oatmeal is made from seeds, isn't it? That makes more sense, now that I think about it. Anyway, let's go ahead and place down that explorer's hut over here so we can get some more science. And now that we have our explorer's hut, we can see that we have gained some additional knowledge points, which for some reason is only showing 9 out of 10 instead of 10 out of 10. I think that just needs to update from a next tick. But yeah, by now having this up here, we're up to 45% production of science points. It will be 50% once this does recalculate. And that's all just what feeds into this district. Now, this is going to be our cap. Until we get some more districts and more specialized buildings and increase this cap, we're not going to be able to start ripping through more science. That said, I mean, we got 27 points right now. That's not half bad. We need 40 to unlock the tables and green spaces, though. And that's going to let us start building up the satisfaction and the comfort for our people. We need to get their well-being up there. That's more important than it used to be. But once we start actually getting some more levels, I'll show you why. We also are now able to explore the wider world, and as you can see here, there is a lot to explore. Not only in terms of all these new zones, But even within every zone, there are some points of interest. We have a glade, a grove, some ruins, a weird antenna sticking out of the ground. Kinda nice. I don't have enough people to spare to do any exploration missions right now, but later on, that would be great. And there's the 40 points I was looking for. Okay, let's go ahead and get the tables and green spaces, unlocking new district types, the display and the green park square, as well as some shelving, which I shouldn't need, mobile workbenches, and domestic cistern. But all of these require some tools in order to build, which I don't have yet. Still, it's the next step we have to take. Tool production is right behind it. Now, it's very important that we find ways of boosting up our well-being here, because that does have a direct impact on things like our efficiency. So if I take a look at the kitchen right now, we can see that we have a base efficiency right now of 100% because I have 2 citizens working here, and only 5% right now because for some reason my well-being has dropped to 1 out of 10. This would have been a lot higher if this had actually stayed up there. We would be at 125%, but we didn't. So, because we lost some of that well-being, we have slowed down. The more you can meet the needs of your people, the more well-being you have, the more social and other things you have going for you, generally speaking, the more benefits you are going to get for different types of production buildings. New cycle, which means more children have been born, and now we actually have some more working adults. Good. Let's go ahead and start chunking through some of the science. Now we can get 3 or 4 science per day thanks to that 45% knowledge bonus, which still hasn't updated. Interesting. I'm going to have to rebuild a couple of things. Either way, point is we're going to start getting a lot more science now, and we can go ahead and grab things like tool production. Now, would it be worth trying to improve our Founder Square into a specific district? We could do things like that. If this is going to end up being a district where we have a lot of our early production buildings, this might actually even be pretty good. Yeah, let's go ahead and upgrade. There we go. Now from here we can see our district score, and the more of certain types of buildings we place in this, the more score we are going to get. So we don't have any sand glider garages or a foundry. We do have a kitchen. A second kitchen wouldn't go amiss apparently. T-bar, some shelving, street lamps, various different plant life and stuff, and also we do have our storage buildings here. So if we can get something else in here, we would be able to upgrade this and just have a few extra work slots for any of those production buildings. But eventually this is going to turn into extra social maximum score here, or knowledge maximum score, and so on. Now another thing that's different about districts is we can buy out some markers. Now I don't necessarily need one of these right now, but just for the sake of, showing you how this would work, if I were to place a marker out over, I think like, let's say right there. Yeah, there we go. You can see that we would be able to expand out the range of a district. So previously, it was a little bit frustrating trying to place down various buildings with competing districts overlapping and making sure the right building went to the right district so they stayed upgraded. Now, it's a lot easier thanks to these markers. So district management is a lot easier than ever before. Anyway, let's go ahead and get ourselves a forge. That should be worth a bit of extra score here. And we have an event. Okay, since arriving in this place, we've concentrated on our immediate survival. Now it wants to have a social level of at least 8. Well, we only have so many cycles to actually finish this mission. Maybe we can do this. Maybe. We'd have to spend all of our research on that, though. We do have public spaces available to us. This could be worth some. Yeah, benches and tables plus 10 social. Stuff like that. Okay, let's go ahead and unlock that, too. So now we've got some public spaces that I can put down. And I want to place this close to all of our housing in order to boost up their social level. So we'll place it over here. And what's something else we could get ourselves? Arboriculture. We already have composting, apparently. A decomposer. We need to find a tablet. Right. We have to do some exploration to unlock some of these high-tier buildings. Fair enough. Well, here's our forge done, so now we can start manufacturing some tools, or we could start doing some stone cutting, but I think tools will be fine. And our display square has now jumped up to the next milestone. Okay, so this is now active. Kind of cool that all of these districts are now capable of doing this. And the social skill is now up and running, so we are at 10 out of 10. Good. Great success for me. This is all very rudimentary. You don't say. No rewards, which feels a little bit bad, man, but it's okay. Let's go ahead and unlock the healthcare buildings. This is going to help us build up our well-being, and therefore a lot of our efficiency. Can place this right along over here. This will affect all of our current housing. Good enough. And there we go. Now that well-being has gone up, we can see that efficiency has jumped up to 150%. Social and well-being both are adding to our efficiency multiplier. This is how you really start getting good at the game. Stacking up a lot of these new well-being and satisfaction types of modifiers. Didn't used to be this way, so this is a new way of progression is working in the game, but I think the pacing makes a lot of sense and feels pretty darn good. 2 new kids, huh? Excellent. Oh, but it's a dry season. It's now very, very hot. I don't know that I have a very good way of dealing with that, if I'm honest. We would need to get ourselves things like shade. Sun awnings? I need heritage points to make that work. Heritage points. I think I would get that from the cultivating of civil engineering. So I really need to get some people over here working in the tools. If I can just get some tools and unlock some new tech, we can get some culture points, and with culture points, we'd be able to get ourselves some shade, and with shade, I'm hoping that people would be a lot better off. I mean, it's either that or people are going to start getting sick from, like, heat stroke and stuff. Heat exhaustion. That can happen. Or, I suppose an alternative, refrigerated housing, so they can prevent the heat stroke. Yeah, again, we need tools to unlock this, but if we can get the right materials together, this would also be a way of solving the problem. Yep, already starting to get our first round of heat exhaustion. It's fine, it's fine. We've got an infirmary. Not a big deal. There's 10 tools. Hold the phone. Do we want to go for the housing? You know, the housing is probably the faster solution right now. Let's just do that. Okay, so with that done, we need what? We could use a bunch of different resources. Some stone, and is that just generic logs? No, that's from tree trunks. If I want to get that, I also need to get myself some lumber mills, which I can unlock, and a lumber mill will be able to take my... no, we need to treat the branches and the bark using resin, which I don't have yet. But if we had arboriculture and we were able to collect from some various different plants, including trees... I can't remember for sure, but that might be a good way to do that. Or maybe instead of making tools, we should just go ahead and get some stone cutting done, and then I can just start manufacturing these things out of bark. That might be a better way to go. It's still a very slow process, though. If I could get a couple more people working over here, we could try to get some of this up there. I need to start making a lot more of these bricks. There we go. That's at least enough for a couple of houses. So let's just go ahead and destroy a couple of these. Oh, but these are 3x3, I just realized. These are much bigger housings. Ooh, boo, right. Maybe don't destroy these yet. This, fundamentally changes the layout for this entire area, doesn't it? Kinda, yeah. Okay, we may need a couple of different things then. We might need to get some more water distribution in this area over here so I can fit some more housing in this general vicinity around the cellar. Sure. Or we could just, you know, power through it, considering the fact that we apparently are able to treat the heat exhaustion fast enough that I'm not too worried about it yet. Yeah, and now we're having some burnout issues. Too many sick citizens. Well, hopefully the hot season will be ending pretty soon. Only 3 more days to go. There we go. Temperate season. Okay, problem solved. Right? Can we get ourselves the glorious Hall of Wisdom? Maybe. Or maybe we would prefer placing down some different districts. For now, we'll just go ahead and place this. It's fine. We'll have to rearrange a lot of our city later on as we start getting more specialized districts. But for the moment, I'd rather just get this stuff down on the ground. And then we can just kind of play around to our heart's content. There we go. A nice little Hall of Wisdom. We'll sign a couple of citizens here. This should start getting me, it looks like 2 per day. Okay, that's not bad. If I can get some cultural buildings together, this would boost up my heritage points, just like with the knowledge. Time to restudy some of these plants. Now, that's one thing that's fun in Synergy. As you progress technologically and new things become available, you know, such as building up one of these arborists' workshop, we have new things we can do to the local plant life. We could prune, we could notch in order to extract some fluids. But we don't know of any fluids, so if I were to go over here and start up some new tasks, things that were previously unavailable are now available. So we can restudy the same trees, the same mushrooms, and so on to unlock new abilities. It's kind of one of the things I like about Synergy. There's this constant, like, discovery. So, for example, the hatted tree can be notched in order to get me the resin. Now I know. We could also prune out some soft fibers, so I don't have to rip up these other plants. All very useful things. By the way, do you want to get the sun awnings or the hanging tapestries? The hanging tapestries would help me get my heritage points up a bit faster. Let's try that. Now we're getting a city event saying, hey, have some more culture and also have some knowledge. Honestly, we are already on the verge of doing that, so that was very convenient timing for me. Boom, just like that. Easiest task of my life. So we're getting a very decent mix now of our science and heritage points. Honestly, this does work very similarly to how the game was before this major update. At least the design intent appears to be exactly the same, which is certainly nice, though I think that so far the progression of this feels like the pacing is kind of more what it needed to be. I don't know, it feels like it's not too fast, but also not too slow, and I'm having to divert resources in just the right way. I would like to be able to get to things like the past and future to show some advanced districts. It's going to take quite a few points to get to that point, though. Alternatively, we could start researching a special analysis of plants in order to figure out what their impacts are in the area around it, which is not a bad thing to do, especially if we get to a point where I want to start farming any of these plants, take their seeds. I probably should know what they're going to do to the surrounding areas and how they interact with other plants. Case in point, the sowing ability is right down over here. If I can get one more science point, actually, we will be able to use this. But before I use it, yeah, let's just go ahead and find out what their impact is. Give myself some time to actually study the nearby plants. Environmental impact, there we go. Takes a while, unfortunately, but that's fine. I want to especially know what happens with certain plants that maybe I want to farm. Anything that gets me lots of food, for example. Yeah, here we go. So, the whipping gourd, fragile surface releases water at the slightest notch, favoring the development of organic matter. We learned that this does boost up humidity in its area, boosts up well-being tier 2, is worth organic matter, but reduces the temperature. Or, I guess it's red, so that's confusing to me. I would think that reducing the temperature is a good thing, right? Maybe not. Either way, though, they do not react to any scattering attempts, a way of trying to sow some seeds. Instead, they appear naturally near other plants. Good to know. On the other hand, it's worth noting that this cabbage shrub, which is usually worth a pretty good amount of vegetables, is actually ugly, and people do not want it anywhere near their homes or their districts. Fair enough. They also produce more in the presence of a whipping gourd. Okay. See, and this is the kind of stuff that's interesting, you know? As we discover more about this world, it's like, I need to build an ecology, right? Figure out how all the local wildlife plays together. What is their place in the circle of life? And then how do I exploit it? Satisfaction levels are very high, by the way. We're up to 88% now, only lacking a little bit of culture. If I can find myself some additional buildings, we'll be able to do things like that. I don't think just placing down more banners does the job. I think we need something else that's unique. But the point is, all the different like cooperation types of buildings are now working a bit more effectively. Heritage points and science points are going up very, very quickly. And generally speaking, production's looking great. I'm also getting myself an assignment tower over here, which I think is a very iconic building from the title screen of the game. But the point of this is now I can assign some people to be dedicated logistics workers, which should make my entire economy function a lot faster now. Arguably one of the most important things that we can pick up. Okay, so this is looking solid. Let's go ahead and learn about sowing. It's time to farm. For that to work, we're going to need another one of these pickers' cabins. So let's see, do we want to do seed scattering? Requires rotten resources for this to work. We're going to need to do some composting on top of all of this too, aren't I? Probably. If I do that though, let's say over... I guess for now, let's just say over here. We could try placing down things like some diluvian bushes. Maybe also place down a few trees, but I want to leave room for some whipping gourds to grow around them. Because they have a nice synergistic effect, haha, that's appropriate for the name of the game, where apparently the diluvian bush actually produces better if those gourds are around. I guess we should also go ahead and move on to the past and future, so we can get the observatory square and the monument square, and this is probably the point where we want to start rebuilding a lot of our civilization, because I want to get lots of science buildings in the observatory square, and I want my culture buildings moved over to the monument square. Plus, there's other little things we can get. Some terracotta roads. Seems nice. Boosts up everyone's movement speed. Heck yes, that's always great. But to do anything with that, I really need to get some tablets. Same thing here with composting. I need rotten resources, right? So, if we're going to be going exploring, maybe we have some people available? Do we actually have enough people? We got 2 citizens available. That's not good enough. But with a new cycle comes some children reaching adulthood. Is that good enough? Yes, it is. Okay, do you want to go to the Grove? Honestly, not sure if it matters what we go to right now. Yeah, sure, let's just go to the Grove. So now my people are going to start traveling. This is going to actually start seeming a little bit more reminiscent of games like Frostpunk, where you really need to explore the world around you. By the way, over in this direction, I do think I want to get myself another one of these founder squares, and we'll turn this into an observation district. Or observatory district, whatever. The point is, I want to move my science over here, if I can. Okay, we've arrived at our destination. Looks like we have an extremely rapidly growing grove of trees. We could take some tree trunks and it'll regenerate. This is probably a repeatable thing. But because I have the Arboriculture project done, we actually can instead study the specimen and get some more heritage points, which seems pretty great. So we get some seeds, some cereals, and some thorns. Well, I mean, hey, cool, that's nice. Always worth exploring. There are some negative events out there, though. Scary things that can happen, so you gotta be careful. And now that we have this founder square, let's go for an upgraded district. I'm gonna go for... Actually, do I want the observatory or do I want the monument? The observatory's fine. Why overthink it? There we go. Now that we have the observatory district set up, I need a bunch of things. Schools, sand extractors, foundries, research centers can move for sure. Explorer's hut could move over here. Yeah, these are all good things. Okay, let's just go ahead and start rebuilding. Interestingly enough, the observatory square apparently wants to be close to all my water processing, which I did not realize was a thing. Well, fortunately, we happen to be next to a source of water, so that actually kind of works. Maybe we'll just want to go ahead and relocate everything up there. And there we go. Now we are up to a Tier 1 observatory square, so that's boosted, which is getting me what? Extra people working at the research center, so now I can make stupid amounts of science if I wanted to. 7 points per day? It's pretty good. Now see, exploring a bit more, we found some sort of a weird underground structure, and I can get myself a tablet, which I do want. Okay, so with tablets, we should be able to unlock some other technology I've been missing up to this point, including... we need to actually decipher the tablet first. I was going to say we could do that for the composting, but no, I first need to find out what the heck is going on with the tablet. Maybe I just need to wait for it to actually arrive. Right, that's actually probably it. Maybe I should wait for it to actually get here before I jump the gun. How does one use a tablet? Oh, there it is down there. Ha, right. Decipher a tablet, and we'll go ahead and unlock the composting. Dunskies. And if we're able to get ourselves lots of rotten resources, that means we're going to be able to get ourselves a bunch of farms. Unfortunately, I think this reduces well-being for everything around it, so we need to keep it far away. I guess down over here is okay. Still somewhat central to where I need it to be. And you know what? Good to know. I actually was wondering how I'm supposed to get whipping gourds because I'm not supposed to be able to do much with them. But it looks like a throated water lily actually can create enough local moisture that it can let them settle. Okay, so it's actually worth trying to do all of the above here. Would it be worth trying to build any additional districts? You know, start working like a garden district and stuff like that? We could. I'm just thinking an area where I can do lots of farming and lots of gardening could make a lot of sense. Yeah, I think I'll just go ahead and build this out as a green park square. And this will let me start moving a lot of my farming, my gathering, and so on into this area. We'll also build out a canteen, and this is actually going to reach a very wide area to boost up some social and some culture for everybody. We are still running into some challenges, though. For example, I'm almost completely out of food. There's just not a lot to work with here. Maybe we can go ahead and pick some of the sour pods up over here. And maybe there are some vegetables we could pick somewhere? No? Oh boy. Well, the good news is there's a ton of cabbage shrubs over here, plus I can get some of that rotten food that I was looking for anyway, so this works. Also, we just unlocked a new satisfaction tier in my main district, since we got it up to tier 2. That means certain types of satisfaction now can go up to 20, but we're going to need more advanced structures. What we've been building up to this point is not going to cut it. And as you can see here, for example, if my well-being went above 10, instead of getting... 5% production speed for every 1 point of well-being, we get 10%. Get it even higher at some point with tier 3, we could get 15%. The point of this being, you always should be investing aggressively in the satisfaction of your people. It makes a huge difference. So the tier 2 kind of buildings I'm talking about with things like these public fountains over here, if I had a bit more heritage points, that could obviously be useful. I'm pretty sure going for things like tea could also be considered to be tier 2. There's also some upgrades to the arts. Yeah, lots of good stuff we could do here. By the way, before we end this video, let's go ahead and take a look at some ground analysis. This is yet another thing that my field laboratory can do. Find out what kind of ground different plants like, so that it's a little bit easier to figure out where to plant them and where they are going to thrive. Though it's pretty safe to say that the different plants tend to thrive in the environments you're finding them naturally. So, throated water lily, I think it's safe to say this has to be placed next to some water. Fair enough. And at some point, I'm also going to have to go through here and start removing these rustic tents in favor of bigger houses, because they're capped out at only 10 happiness across all the 4 different categories. Still, I think you can probably see how this game has been developing in a very big way. The district management, I think, is a lot more sensible. The fact that I'm also able to, like, expand it is pretty darn helpful for cases where I'm like, but I'm just barely out of range. Nah, now we can totally get around that. The way that satisfaction is being used to propagate your economy is very sensible and gives me a reason to keep investing in my people. And I like the new point generation system. I think it works. The pacing doesn't feel off. It doesn't feel like it's needlessly slow. It feels like it's actually progressing at a very, very healthy pace. What I haven't figured out, honestly, is just how to build out my city blocks in a way that leaves enough room for future growth and lots of different amenities, but, well, that just takes a little bit of practice. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with how this town is turning out so far. My opinion, very, very solid strides across the board for Synergy. It is shaping up to get better and better with every major update. I like the design choices here. Not to mention, I mean, come on, it's beautiful. It's always had a very interesting art style, and it really shines even with all of these new buildings. Absolutely fantastic. But that is where I'm going to be ending things for today. Once again, I want to say a big thank you to Goblins Publishing for the sponsorship today. Much appreciated. If you guys did enjoy this video and you'd like to learn more about Synergy, then you will be able to find that link in the description down below. Otherwise, if you did enjoy the video, I'd ask you to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, hit that notify bell, and I will see you guys next time.